Very much for staying with this time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, the family of a Tunisian opposition politician murdered over a decade ago say that they feel some relief that the tough sentences that were given to those who were convicted of Chokri Belaid's murder, which sparked widespread unrest at a politically and socially turbulent time in Tunisia's history. Also, 4 private South African colleges are labelled as dysfunctional by South Africa's Education Ministry in order to shut up shop. The crackdown on the Educor-run institutions will disrupt the studies of thousands of students. And despite ongoing political and social turbulence, the Muslim holy month of Ramadan is bringing Libyan communities together, bonded by their culinary traditions and mass cookouts that mean that even those struggling to make ends meet can break their daily fast. But first, 4 people have been sentenced to death in Tunisia for the 2013 murder of secular opposition leader Chokri Belaid. The killing sparked a wave of protests and derailed the country's democratic transition in the wake of the Arab Spring uprisings of 2011. Clarice Fortuné tells us more.
After an investigation that lasted 11 years, it took a Tunisian jury 15 hours to reach a verdict. 4 people were handed the death penalty over the murder of Chokri Belaid. Jihadists pledging allegiance to the Islamic State group claimed to have carried out both the killing of Belaid and Mohamed Pami in 2013, both key figures on the Tunisian left. Belaid's brother welcomes the verdicts.
All Tunisians are in the same state of mind. We are relieved because this verdict has given us some confidence in the future of Tunisian justice, which is beginning to improve. It is possible that in the future we will witness more significant and fair judgments.
For years, Tunisia's justice system was accused of dragging its feet. Ennahda, an Islamist party that dominated Tunisian politics from the 2011 revolution right up until 2021, was also accused of hindering the investigation. A lawyer and human rights activist, Belaid spent his life fighting for a more equal and democratic Tunisia. He was a key figure in a revolution that brought down former strongman Zine El Abidine Ben Ali. Belaid was also an outspoken critic of Ennahda.
In 2011, we came out to protest against injustice and exploitation. Here we are again on Bourguiba Avenue to rid ourselves of this oppression.
Belaid's assassination in 2013 triggered a violent wave of protest across the country. Thousands gathered for his funeral, which turned into a mass rally against the country's ruling Islamist party Ennahda. Abdelmajid Belaid says the fight for justice is not over.
I'm convinced that there will be other battles to end this war in our favor.
But for now, he says, at least justice has been served.
Now, South Africa's Higher Education Ministries ordered 4 private colleges to shut down, accusing them of making up exam results and failing to hand over years of financial statements. The institutions, owned by education provider Educor, were branded as being dysfunctional and reportedly were subject to a raft of complaints from staff and students.
One of the complaints that I remember receiving was that students were given marks based on exam scripts that were never marked because the lecturers were no longer at work because they were not being paid. Now, that's the worst sin that can be committed by an education institution, whether public or private.
So Damelin, City Varsity, Ekesa City Campus and Lyceum College have been given until the end of the year to wrap up. But the crackdown does mean that thousands of students have been left in limbo. Eunice Masson joins us with more from South Africa. Eunice, so this is a huge move by the South African Education Ministry. Just how bad were these colleges to be when the government decides to deregister them halfway through the school year?
Indeed. And, at this point of time, the department did not have any other option but to take action against the EduCorps group. According to the Higher Education Minister, Belaid Nzimande, his department has received several complaints, as you've mentioned, against these 4 campuses for years now. It's not the first year. The complaints vary from poor training, corruption and bribery to not paying their staff salaries. But what prompted this ministry to call the stop to these colleges now is their failure to submit their annual financial statements and tax clearance certificates for 2 years, the years 2021 and 2022. And it's not the first time either. Back in 2022, EduCorps was warned against deregistration for not submitting the 2020 financial records, and it failed to do so yet again. The colleges had an opportunity to lodge an appeal for an extension, but that should have been taken place before September last year. And from what I can understand, the colleges did not ask for an extension back in September, but only in February this year. And in addition to that, the Minister Nzimande has announced this week that the colleges have been misleading students with their enrollment figures as well. They claim to have 50,000 students, while in reality, this figure is just over 13,000. And this leaves serious questions in terms of the administration of the institution.
Well, still 13,000 is a lot of students. What happens to them and to the colleges themselves now?
Yeah, at this moment, many students do not know what lies ahead. The academic year is in full swing, but exactly where or what should happen is unclear. Now, I think it's important for us to just note that while it's widely understood that 4 colleges have been deregistered, it is in fact only the accreditation of some programs at the EduCorps group that have been impacted. But this still leaves many, many students unsure about where to go. Communication from these affected colleges is not forthcoming. There is absolutely little to no indication of what plan is put in place for the students. There were talks about sending students to alternative institutions, but that in itself is a massive administrative nightmare if you think of costs, transport, and even availability. The current deregistration also impacts staff at these colleges, but no clarity has been forthcoming from the colleges.
Eunice?
So what exactly lies ahead, we do not know.
Eunice Masson there for us in Cape Town. Thank you so much. Now, South Africa's ruling ANC party is trying again to impede the progress of recently registered opposition Umkhonto weSizwe party, just days after Johannesburg court rejected a similar complaint aimed at disqualifying it from the May 29th election. On Wednesday, the ANC filed a new court application accusing the MK party of intellectual property theft. Now, its name and logo does bear some similarity to a now disbanded military wing of the ANC. The ANC itself risks dropping below 50% of the vote for the first time since coming to power at the end of apartheid. MK is backed by former South African President Jacob Zuma, who was recently suspended from the ANC for his support of MK.
The ANC.
Now, Malam Bakai Sanya Jr., the son of the late president of Guinea-Bissau, has been sent to prison in the United States for his involvement in an international heroin trafficking conspiracy. The U.S. Attorney's Office accuses him of planning to use drug money to finance a presidential campaign and coup in Guinea-Bissau. He's been sentenced to more than 6 years in prison. Our regional correspondent, Sam Bradpiece, talks us through.
Guinea-Bissau already has a reputation as Africa's first narco-state, but a recent high-profile case involving the son of the former president has only gone to cement this reputation further. Malam Bakai Sanya Jr. was extradited to the US from Tanzania back in 2022, but it's only this week that he's been sentenced for his involvement in the international drug trade. The court in the US heard that Malam Bakai Sanya Jr. had planned to use the money acquired through importing notably heroin into the US to finance a 2025 presidential campaign and somewhat paradoxically also to finance a coup d'etat. Guinea-Bissau is a really important transit country in the international drug trade, with gangs from South America notably sending cocaine through Guinea-Bissau and then onwards to Europe and beyond. This crime has caused really bad public health outcomes in Guinea-Bissau and has worsened the country's poverty, which is already among the most extreme of anywhere in the world.
Now, a group of volunteers in Libya have been working daily to make sure that even those struggling to make ends meet can break their fast during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan. The team meet around huge pots to whip up huge batches of traditional staples that are later handed out to anyone in the community who needs a hot meal. Clem Valla has more.
Cooking sticks in hand, these volunteers work diligently to prepare the traditional basin stew that will be served to the community. Here in the Libyan city of Tajura, around 30 men gather every day, roll up their sleeves, and prepare some 300 meals that will be given away during Ramadan.
The Tajura region, specifically the Burhaniya district, is famous for the preparation of the traditional popular meal called bazin, sometimes also called ksa. It's distributed as a charity on behalf of all deceased Muslims.
Similar to Italian polenta or West African fufu, bazin, originally a Berber dish, is a classic family meal from Tripolitania, the historic northwestern region of Libya. After being cooked for at least an hour, the dough is kneaded and divided into smaller pieces and then placed in a bowl with a stew of beans, tomatoes, and spices. The dish is also a symbol of sharing for Libyans, typically eaten by hand from a shared platter.
We inherited this meal from our ancestors, which was only prepared at home and distributed to the locals, relatives and neighbors. Nowadays, we developed the idea and created the center to prepare meals for all those who visit the area.
The annual initiative began after the 2011 uprising that overthrew longtime dictator Muammar Gaddafi. According to the volunteers, they serve between 300 to 400 dishes a day. For the community, it provides a moment of peace and solidarity as the country is torn by conflicting political factions and a cost of living crisis.
That's it for Eye on Africa for now, but thanks very much for joining us, and do so again if you can. Till then, take care.